The asteroid belt mining station Delta 9 hung silently in the void between Mars and Jupiter, its massive processing arrays extracting precious metals from the endless stream of space rocks that drifted past. Captain Alina Volkov stood at the observation deck, her weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as she watched the latest haul being brought in by the automated mining drones. 20 years of deep space mining had taught Alina to trust her instincts, and something felt wrong today. The quantum communications array had been picking up strange distortions for the past week, but the station's technical chief, Dr. Marcus Wung, had assured her it was just solar interference. She tapped her neural interface, bringing up the station's status displays in her field of vision. Everything appeared normal, oxygen levels stable, power output nominal, 3,000 crew members going about their daily routines. Delta 9 was humanity's most productive mining operation, providing critical resources for Earth's expanding Starship program. The first warning came from Junior Officer Kai Patel at the long-range sensor station. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple gravitational anomalies at the edge of our sensor range. The signatures, they're not matching any known human vessels." Alina's muscles tensed. First contact protocols had been drilled into every space station commander since humanity began its expansion into the solar system. But something about these readings suggested this wouldn't be a diplomatic encounter. "Sound general quarters," Alina ordered, her voice calm despite the adrenaline surging through her system. "Get me a direct quantum link to Earth Defense Command." The klaxons had barely begun to wail when the first ships emerged from Fold space. Massive vessels, their hulls covered in crystalline structures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Alina counted 12 capital ships, each one dwarfing Delta 9 by several orders of magnitude. "This is Captain Alina Volkov of the Earth Mining Corporation Station Delta 9, she broadcast on all frequencies. "We are a civilian installation engaged in peaceful resource extraction. Please identify yourselves." The response came in the form of energy readings that made the sensor officers' faces go pale. "Multiple weapons systems powering up," Kai shouted. "They're targeting our critical systems." Alina slammed her hand down on the station-wide broadcast. "All hands, emergency evacuation procedures. Get to the escape pods now." She turned to her bridge crew. "Begin database purge and activate the quantum beacon. Earth needs to know what's happening here." The first salvos from the alien ships weren't designed for quick destruction. They methodically targeted the station's defensive systems, communication arrays, and escape pod launchers. The message was clear. They wanted no survivors, no witnesses. Commander James Henderson, the station's security chief, coordinated what little defense they could muster. "Mining drones reconfigured for defensive patterns," he reported. "But against their technology, it's like throwing rocks at a battleship." Alina watched as her crew fought with everything they had. Mining lasers designed to cut through asteroid rock were turned against the alien vessels. Maintenance bots became suicide drones, ramming into enemy fighter craft. But it was like watching children try to hold back a tsunami with their hands. In the chaos, Dr. Wung worked frantically at his console, compressing everything they knew about their attackers into a quantum data burst. "Captain, I've identified their species from their energy signatures," he called out. "They match theoretical patterns we detected from the Krivax Empire's territory. The xenoanthropologists warned us about them. They're known for eliminating what they consider lesser species without warning." Alina nodded grimly. "Get that data ready for transmission. Henderson, buy us time." The station's structure groaned as another blast tore through its outer hull. Emergency force fields flickered and failed. Sections began decompressing, sending crew members tumbling into space. Alina watched the death toll climbing on her neural interface display, each lost life burning into her consciousness. "Quantum burst ready," Wung announced, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "But we'll need to drop our defensive shields to get a clear transmission." "Do it," Alina ordered. "Henderson, give everything we have left to protect that transmission point." The remaining mining drones formed a barrier around the quantum array, sacrificing themselves one by one as they intercepted enemy fire. Wang's fingers flew across his console, initiating the burst sequence. "Remember us," Alina whispered as she watched the data stream launch, carrying with it humanity's first warning of the Krivak's threat. The transmission disappeared into quantum space milliseconds before a concentrated energy beam from the Krivak's flagship vaporized the array and everyone near it. As Delta 9's structure began its final collapse, Alina Volkov stood at her post, watching the Krivak's ships methodically destroy every escape pod they could target. But she smiled, knowing that one piece of information had slipped through their net. The Krivaks thought they were erasing humanity's first warning of their existence. Instead, they had just signed their own death warrant. Deep within Earth's lunar military complex, a quantum receiver activated. The message from Delta 9 arrived intact, complete scans of Krivak's technology, their attack patterns, and their weaknesses. Most importantly, it carried proof of their unprovoked attack on a civilian installation. Admiral Jun Zhao, commander of Earth's classified Ghost Fleet, reviewed the data with cold fury. The Krivaks had just made the worst mistake in their empire's history. They thought they were dealing with simple miners. They were about to learn that humanity had teeth, and they'd been holding them back. Admiral Jun Zhao stood in the command center of Lunar Base Echo, her expression unreadable as she reviewed the final moments of Delta 9's transmission. Around her, the Ghost Fleet's command staff worked with practiced efficiency, analyzing every frame of data the doomed mining station had managed to send. "They think they've found our weakness," she said quietly, addressing Commander Rajesh Patel, her chief of strategic operations. "They see our civilian installations as soft targets, our spread-out colonies as vulnerabilities." Rajesh nodded, his cybernetic eye glowing softly as it processed tactical data. "The Krivaks have no concept of humanity's true military capability. Delta 9's sacrifice has given us everything we need: their shield frequencies, weapons signatures, even their FTL drive patterns. In the decades since humanity had first detected signs of hostile alien empires, they had prepared in silence. While civilian ships used standard engines and conventional weapons, the Ghost Fleet represented humanity's darkest secrets. Ships built with quantum phase technology, crews enhanced with neural interfaces far beyond what was publicly known, and weapons that defied conventional physics. "Begin Operation Nightfall," Jun ordered, activating the secure command channel to all Ghost Fleet facilities. "I want every Phantom-class vessel deployed within 6 hours. Priority targets are their forward supply lines and command nodes." The response was immediate. Throughout the solar system, hidden bases activated. Ships that had never appeared on any official record emerged from their quantum bubbles. The Ghost Fleet's vessels were unlike anything the Krivaks would expect: sleek, dark shapes that absorbed both light and sensor scans, their hulls incorporating technology reverse-engineered from a dozen different alien wreckages found over the years. Lieutenant Commander Nadia Chen, head of electronic warfare, approached with a holographic display of the Krivak's fleet movements. "They're expanding their patrol routes, Admiral. They believe they've successfully isolated our mining operations. No signs they detected Delta 9's transmission." "Good," Jun replied, studying the display. "Deploy the Wraith drones first. I want their entire communication network mapped before we strike. Lieutenant Devrin, begin cyber warfare protocols." Lieutenant Aisha Devrin, her fingers dancing across neural interface controls, smiled grimly. "Already begun, Admiral. Our quantum AI is probing their networks. Their encryption is complex, but nothing we haven't prepared for. Interesting, they don't even bother securing their lower-level communication channels. Pure arrogance." The next 12 hours saw the Ghost Fleet move into position with a precision that would have seemed impossible to their enemies. Each ship carried specialized crews, trained for years in secret for exactly this type of operation. Their weapons weren't designed for grand battles or glorious combat. They were made to kill silently, efficiently, and without warning. Commander Viktor Koslov, captain of the stealth carrier Umbra, reported in from the edge of Krivaks-controlled space. "First target acquired. Supply convoy, minimal escort. They're completely unaware of our presence." Jun checked the tactical display one final time. Across 20 light-years of space, 30 Ghost Fleet vessels were in position. Not a single Krivax sensor had detected them. "You all have your targets," she transmitted. "Remember Delta 9, remember Alina Volkov and her crew, but remember our doctrine: we are not here for revenge. We are here to end this threat before it can touch our homeworld." "Execute," she ordered. Across the battlefield, humanity's response began. The Krivax supply ship Eternal Grace disappeared without a trace, its quantum signature erased so completely that even its own fleet couldn't detect its destruction. 3 communication relay stations simply ceased to exist, their molecules scattered across space by weapons that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality. On the bridge of his flagship, Krivax High Commander Zextal received the first reports of missing ships with dismissal. The Empire lost vessels occasionally, space was vast and dangerous. But as the reports kept coming, a pattern emerged that sent a chill through his spine. The missing ships and stations formed a perfect geometric pattern, like a net closing in. More disturbing were the reports from ships that survived. There were no distress calls, no debris fields, no signs of battle. Things simply vanished. In the Lunar Command Center, Jun watched the chaos spreading through the Krivax command structure. "Phase 1 complete," Rajesh reported. "Their supply lines are in disarray. Forward bases are going dark one by one. Their commanders are starting to panic." "Good," Jun replied, her voice cold. "Now they learn the cost of underestimating humanity. Begin Phase 2. Target their command and control infrastructure. I want their entire military hierarchy blind and deaf within the next 12 hours. Lieutenant Deverin's hands flew across her interface. "Deploying quantum viruses now. Their networks won't know what hit them." As the Ghost Fleet moved deeper into enemy territory, the Krivax began to realize a terrible truth. They hadn't started a war with a primitive species. They had awakened something that fought unlike anything they had encountered in their 1,000 years of empire. Something that didn't seek glory in battle or announce its presence with grand fleets. They had wanted to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. Instead, they were about to learn a harsh lesson of their own. In the dark spaces between the stars, humanity had prepared for this moment, and they had prepared well. High Commander Zextal paced the command deck of the Krivax flagship Eternal Dominion, his crystalline armor reflecting the dim emergency lighting. In the past 48 hours, he had lost contact with over 30% of his fleet's forward operations. The latest reports painted an impossible picture: entire battle groups vanishing without trace, command centers going dark, and supply lines being systematically dismantled. "My lord," his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vexner, approached with visible hesitation. "We've lost contact with the 7th Battle Group. Last transmission indicated..." "Nothing. They simply ceased to exist." Zextal's facial ridges darkened with rage. How are they doing this? These humans were nothing primitive miners and colonists. We crushed their outpost without effort." In the vast darkness of space, Commander Yuki Tanaka watched through the quantum-shifted sensors of her stealth destroyer, Shadow Strike, as another Krivax patrol group moved into her kill zone. Her ship systems were operating in complete silence, its very existence hidden between microseconds of time. "Target locked," her weapons officer, Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, reported through the neural network that connected the crew. "Quantum torpedoes primed. They still haven't detected us." Yuki allowed herself a small smile. "Execute pattern Omega. No survivors, no debris, no warnings." The Shadow Strike's quantum torpedoes didn't travel through normal space. They phased through the quantum foam of reality itself, appearing inside their target's shield perimeters. The Krivax patrol group didn't even have time to register surprise before their atomic structures were completely disassembled. Back at Lunar Command, Admiral Jun Zhao received Yuki's success report along with dozens of others. The tactical display showed hundreds of red dots vanishing from Krivax space. Each represented a strategic target eliminated by the Ghost Fleet. "Admiral," Lieutenant Deverin called out, her neural interfaces glowing as she processed incoming data. "The quantum virus has fully penetrated their primary command network. We're seeing signs of complete command structure collapse in 3 sectors. Commander Rajesh studied the tactical feeds. They're beginning to understand. Look at their fleet movements. They're abandoning standard patrol patterns, clustering their ships together. Fear is setting in. Good, Jun replied. Deploy Phase 3. Commander Patel, you have authorization to activate the Nemesis protocol. Throughout human space, hidden quantum facilities began powering up devices that had been waiting years for this moment. The Nemesis protocol wasn't about destruction. It was about psychological warfare on a scale the Krivax couldn't comprehend. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Zextal watched in horror as his tactical displays began showing impossible readings. Ghost signatures of massive fleets appearing and disappearing. Sensor echoes that suggested human vessels of impossible size. Quantum wake patterns that defied known physics. My lord, Vexner's voice shook. We're detecting human ships inside our defensive perimeter, but the readings, they're everywhere and nowhere. Our sensors can't lock onto them. They're like shadows. In the darkness of space, Commander Viktor Koslov's stealth carrier Umbra deployed its complement of quantum-shifted fighters. Unlike traditional spacecraft, these vessels could exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, appearing solid only at the moment they struck. All pilots, Victor transmitted through the secure quantum network. Execute attack pattern Delta. Remember, we're not here to destroy their fleet. We're here to make them understand the depth of their mistake. The quantum fighters performed an impossible dance through the Krivax formation. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries found themselves helpless as human vessels phased through their strongest shields, disabled their most powerful weapons, and disappeared before they could respond. The Krivax Empire had built its reputation on overwhelming force, on massive fleets and powerful weapons. But they had never faced an enemy that turned their own confidence into a weapon. Every attempt to mass their forces created a bigger target. Every defensive formation became a trap. In her command center, Jun watched the psychological impact of the Nemesis protocol unfold. The Krivax communications they intercepted showed growing panic. Stories spread through their ranks of human ships that couldn't be killed, of weapons that ignored the laws of physics, of an enemy that struck without being seen and vanished without trace. They thought they were punishing a primitive species, Rajesh observed. Instead, they're facing their worst nightmare, an enemy they can't fight in the way they know how to fight. Lieutenant Commander Chen's neural interfaces flashed as she processed new intelligence. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures from their core worlds. They're activating their entire reserve fleet. Jun nodded, having anticipated this response. They still think this is a war of numbers and firepower. Begin final phase deployment. Let's show them how wrong they are. As orders went out to the Ghost Fleet, the truth became clear to the Krivax Empire. They hadn't started a war with a primitive species. They had awakened something far more dangerous, an enemy that had spent decades preparing for this moment, an enemy that turned their own arrogance into a weapon, an enemy that fought not with brute force but with surgical precision and technological superiority they hadn't imagined possible. The hunters were about to become the hunted, and the galaxy was about to witness a lesson in the true meaning of power. The Krivax Imperial Palace on Dominion Prime trembled as emergency alarms echoed through its crystalline halls. The Imperial Council, gathered in their emergency bunker deep beneath the surface, watched in stunned silence as reports flooded in from across their empire. Supreme Overlord Casthal, ruler of 1,000 star systems, felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded, his voice carrying none of its usual imperial authority. High Strategist Mexler's hands shook as she delivered the report. "My lord, in the past 72 hours, we've lost contact with over 40% of our military assets. The reserve fleet, we've lost contact with half of them since deployment. They're not being destroyed in battle, they're simply disappearing." In the void between stars, Commander Yuki Tanaka's Shadow Strike led a wolf pack of ghost fleet vessels through the quantum shadows of space. Their targets were no longer military installations or supply lines. They were striking at the very heart of Krivak's power. "All ships maintain quantum sync," she ordered through the neural network. "Remember your training. We're not here to fight their fleet. We're here to demonstrate the consequences of their actions." The wolf pack emerged from quantum space inside the Krivak's homeworld's defense grid. Their ships, existing partially out of phase with normal reality, passed through the most sophisticated defense systems in the Empire as if they weren't there. Admiral Jun Zhao watched from Lunar Command as the operation unfolded. "Lieutenant Devrin, status of the quantum virus." "Complete penetration of their central network achieved," Aisha reported, her neural interfaces pulsing with data streams. "We have access to everything, their military commands, their civilian infrastructure, their entire communication network. On your order, we can shut it all down." Jun nodded to Commander Rajesh. "Execute final protocol." Across the Krivak's empire, their technology began to turn against them. Defensive systems targeted their own ships. Communication networks broadcast the final moments of mining station Delta 9 on every channel. Power grids fluctuated, creating patterns that spelled out human words in their own language. "Remember the consequences." On the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Zextal watched helplessly as his mighty flagship systems came under external control. The vessel's quantum core powered down, leaving them drifting in space. Around him, the pride of the Krivak's fleet suffered the same fate. Through their compromised communication systems, a single human voice reached every Krivak's ship, station, and world simultaneously. Admiral Jun Zhao spoke with calm authority that carried more weight than any weapon. "I am Admiral Jun Zhao of the Earth Defense Force. You believed you found a primitive species worthy only of extinction. Instead, you found humanity. We did not want this war. We did not seek this conflict. You brought this upon yourselves when you murdered 3,000 innocent civilians on mining station Delta 9. In the Imperial bunker, Supreme Overlord Casthal watched as holographic projections showed human vessels appearing simultaneously throughout his empire. Ships that defied physics, weapons that shouldn't exist, technology that made their most advanced systems look primitive. "Your empire has a choice," Jun's voice continued. "What happens next depends on your response. We have the capability to dismantle everything you've built, piece by piece, ship by ship, world by world. Or you can acknowledge your error and face the consequences of your actions." Commander Victor Koslov's Umbra appeared in orbit above Dominion Prime, its quantum-shifted hull absorbing all light, creating a void in space itself. Around the planet, more ghost fleet vessels emerged from the quantum foam, their weapons capable of reducing the cradle of the Krivak's empire to atomic particles. "You believed strength came from dominance," Jun's message concluded. "We're here to show you that true strength comes from restraint. You have one planetary rotation to signal your surrender and agree to our terms. If you refuse, we will demonstrate exactly how merciful we've been so far." In the silence that followed, the Krivak's leaders faced a truth that shattered their worldview. They had spent millennia believing they were the most advanced civilization in known space, that their technology and military might were unmatched. In less than a week, a species they had dismissed as primitive had proven that assumption devastatingly wrong. High Strategist Mexler turned to her Supreme Overlord, her voice barely a whisper. "My lord, they could have destroyed us at any time, everything they've done. It wasn't just about military victory. They were teaching us a lesson." Supreme Overlord Casthal, ruler of the mighty Krivak's empire, stood before his council. For the first time in their history, they faced a force that had defeated them not through superior numbers or brute force, but through technological superiority so vast it appeared as magic. The choice before them was clear: adapt or face extinction. Throughout human space, the Ghost Fleet maintained its silent vigil, a reminder that humanity's mercy should never be mistaken for weakness. 1 month after the Krivak's surrender, the galaxy had changed forever. The ceremonial halls of the neutral station Concordia, constructed in record time through human quantum engineering, hosted representatives from every major spacefaring civilization. They had come to witness something unprecedented, the formal admission of the Krivax Empire's mistakes and the unveiling of a new galactic order. Admiral Jun Zhao stood at the observation deck, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the station. Beside her, Commander Rajesh Patel reviewed the final casualty reports from the conflict. Total human military losses, 0, a first in the history of interstellar warfare. The cost was still too high, Jun replied, thinking of mining station Delta 9. 3,000 civilians, their sacrifice will not be forgotten. In the main assembly chamber, Supreme Overlord Kazthal, once the most powerful being in known space, approached the central podium. His crystalline armor, once a symbol of Krivak's superiority, now seemed like an ostentatious reminder of past arrogance. For 1,000 years, he began, his voice carried to every corner of known space through quantum channels. The Krivax Empire believed strength came from fear. We judged species by their apparent military might, their fleet sizes, their planetary defenses. We were wrong. Delegates from across the galaxy watched in stunned silence. Many had suffered under Krivak's aggression over the centuries. None had ever imagined seeing this moment. Commander Yuki Tanaka, representing the Ghost Fleet, sat with her fellow officers. The Shadow Strike and her Wolf Pack remained in orbit, a reminder of humanity's capabilities. But today, their quantum-shifted hulls reflected light instead of absorbing it, a symbolic gesture of peace. Humanity taught us the true meaning of power, Kazthal continued. Not through destruction, but through restraint. Not through overwhelming force, but through precise action. They could have destroyed our empire. Instead, they chose to teach us a better way. The terms of the peace were unprecedented. The Krivax Empire would not be dismantled or occupied. Instead, they would open their technology vaults, sharing advancements they had hoarded for centuries. Their military would be restructured under international oversight. Most importantly, they would help establish the Galactic Concordat, a new organization dedicated to preventing the very kind of aggression they had once championed. Lieutenant Aisha Devrin, monitoring the quantum networks, detected something unexpected, genuine emotion in the Krivax communications. "They're actually grateful," she whispered to Viktor Koslov. "They're relieved to be freed from their own cycle of violence." In a private chamber adjacent to the main hall, High Strategist Mexler met with Admiral Zhao. "There's something I need to understand," she said. "Your Ghost Fleet, your quantum technology. You had these capabilities all along. Why reveal them now?" Jun's response was measured. "Humanity learned early in our development that the greatest power lies not in having weapons, but in knowing when to use them. We built the Ghost Fleet not to conquer, but to protect. The Krivax Empire forced our hand, but our response was calculated to end not just this conflict, but the cycle of military escalation that has plagued this galaxy for millennia." As if to emphasize her point, a holographic memorial activated in the station's central atrium. It displayed the names and faces of every crew member from mining station Delta 9, their sacrifices now serving as a foundation for a new era of galactic peace. Captain Alina Volkov's final words played softly, "Remember us." But now they carried a different meaning, not a call for vengeance, but a reminder of the price of arrogance and the value of wisdom. The formal ceremony concluded with something unprecedented in Krivak's history, an apology followed by a request. Supreme Overlord Kazthal asked humanity to share not their weapons technology, but their philosophy. "Teach us," he said, "how to be strong without being cruel, how to be powerful without being destructive." Admiral Zhao's response would be recorded in history books across the galaxy. "The greatest victory is not in conquering an enemy, but in transforming them into an ally. Welcome to a new age of understanding." As the delegates dispersed and ships prepared to depart, the Ghost Fleet vessels simultaneously activated their quantum drives, creating a spectacular display of light and energy that rippled across space itself. It served as both a celebration and a reminder. Humanity had emerged onto the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as guardians of a new way forward. In the depths of space, mining station Delta 9's quantum beacon continued its silent broadcast, transformed from a warning of humanity's first contact with the Krivax into a memorial of humanity's greatest victory. Not the defeat of an enemy, but the creation of peace through strength, wisdom, and mercy.